All right, so we're ready to go. Welcome everybody to the April 23rd Leadership Council meeting. First item on the agenda is welcome, introduction, and announcements. Great. So Mayor LeBar, go ahead. And we have Luis Alejo.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. I want to, first of all, express great thanks from the City of King over these past months, years, how long it's been since we got into this home key situation. I want to say last night at our council meeting, we signed 15, 16 agreements that finally extricated our city from the issue, signed the documents to purchase the property. We have our developers in place. We have our funding in place. And when all those documents get whatever the legal term is for it, our home key project is now moving forward. All of you have been very patient with us and helped us in the partnership. We could not have done that without all of you. And a special thanks to Supervisor Alejo, who's been a strong advocate in the County of Monterey. But thank you all. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor LeBar, for those kind comments. And we have Supervisor Alejo, and you are the chair. So if you want
you could please continue.
Okay.
I'm here at the CSAC Legislative Conference in Sacramento. That's why I was late. But I wanted to, as you were just saying, to thank Katrina and all the whole team who put on our third homelessness summit. It was very well attended there at the Steinbeck Center. Some really great presenters, discussions. I got some good insights from some of our providers from both San Benito and Monterey counties, even some legislative ideas that I hope to approach our state legislators about. And even one that was related to immigration and housing for our local residents as well. So very well successful event overall, and I just wanted to thank our team and those who attended. My goal is hopefully get some more electeds into the room next time around, but job well done, everybody, and thanks to those who made time to be there.
Thank you, Supervisor. I would clearly echo those comments. It was a great event, well done by organizers, and that would take us to HHAP 5 funding recommendations.
All right. Thank you so much, Supervisor. So we just wrapped up our HAP funding and want to give you an overview of where we were. So we were awarded $3.1 million for our local competition. The $727,000 was previously obligated, as shown on the screen, for administrative funds, system support, which includes like HMIS, capacity building, and other supports throughout the COC, and then the interim sheltering for King City. After those funds were obligated, the remaining funds was $2.4 million in these categories. The youth set-aside can be pulled from any category. We just have to allocate $318,000 for youth. So this is what went out to the RFP to the community in early February. Yes, mid-February, sorry. All right. So on February 28th, that's when the local competition, so late February, end of the month, we launched our local competition, and 23 project proposals were received with an oversubscription of about $4.5 million. So you can see here on this part of the screen how many applications we received per eligible activity. Also keeping in mind that you set aside can come from any of those categories. So when you add this up, it's not going to add up to $7 million. So anticipating an oversubscription, a minimum threshold of 75% was established in our RFP process, and we've added new questions that really gauge program performance against the COC's Lead Me Home plan. And this was the first time we've ever really implemented those measures into our competition. Right. So on April 7th, we moved forward with our rank and review, and they were oriented via Zoom. We went over all the projects, showed them how to read the applications, use the systems that we were using, and review our scoring matrix so that they fully understood what was happening. We had 2 Monterey County staff members, 1 Youth Action Board member, and then 1 directing attorney, 2 of which, and then 2 of the panelists, rank and review panel folks, is on the Leadership Council. I would like to say, well, let me just keep going. Sorry. All right. So after our rank and review, got all the applications, there's 23 projects that came through. 19 of those projects did not meet the 75% threshold. 4 projects met the threshold and will be recommended for funding awards, and 2 projects did not meet that threshold, but is being recommended for awards, and we'll go into that a little bit more. So here are our funding recommendations here. It was a long deliberation process. We ended up having to meet over several days in order for us to come to an understanding of how we can be really strategic about distributing these funds and ensuring that we're able to fund the projects that were meeting thresholds, and see how we can really build out and protect the projects that are coming through. So in this scenario right here, this recommendation, there will be a remaining balance of $1.2 million left for future funding proposals. Funding proposals that can be emergency, new projects that come up, projects that are high performing in our communities, but need a little more help in that. And this is what we are asking the Leadership Council today to approve, in addition to giving CHSP as an administrative entity some discretion in how we move funding forward, of course, after bringing it to the Leadership Council for approval.
So I do have a question. Thank you, Philip, for sending me the packet. I noticed that the County of San Benito, and I might be reading this wrong because I'm reading it on my phone, but it looks like County of San Benito didn't meet the minimum threshold, but we're recommending funding.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So San Benito County, yes, did not meet the minimum threshold, but they already have their 20% set aside. And after further deliberation with our ranking panel, we've decided that writing into policy that maybe we do not include San Benito County inside the local competition, because it's their funds to begin with. It has to go to San Benito County. And what happens is San Benito County's funding gets lumped into all the whole pot of funding. So like when I go back to this slide, their funding is within this portion of it. And then what happens is they go for street outreach, they take out a whole line item. So maybe that's going to be our recommendation, to write that into policy, that we just take out San Benito County's funding proportion. They tell us how they want to spend it, and we leave the local competition with Monterey County. We had this issue last year because we ended up not fully funding San Benito County, and we had to go back and make sure that they get their proportion, because it's written into our contract with the state and the federal government that San Benito County has a specific portion to their county.
I would just say it's supportive of this, and thank you to the review panel for doing that work. The only thing I would add, just moving forward, one, I support, as we discussed at length early last year, making sure we're equitable to San Benito County. This body is more county, more participants, and that's why we wanted to make sure that we set aside San Benito County's money going forward. But the only other two things I talked about with Katrina privately was with some of this money, I think as there's more scrutiny on these funds, in each of these categories, whether it's rapid rehousing or interim sheltering or street outreach, that we're able to, as part of the funding, that we're able to show how many people served in with this grant funding that we're providing. I think we need to be able to have those numbers each year to our constituents, let them know with these dollars, this amount of people that we're helping. The second part of it, I'm glad we have a remaining balance, because I thought another part of our report card on progress is building more of these permanent supportive housing units. And we were set back, obviously, with some of our hotel conversion projects, but that's one of our big necessities, is having these affordable places where people could be sheltered and then be able to be more open to getting the other types of services that our providers are willing to give to them. So I just want to put that as in the queue, is that we got to look for those opportunities to build more permanent supportive housing in both counties.
I have a couple of questions. For the funds going to CHSP, for is there any way to get more detailed, like, what the expansion funding is?
Tim, are you
breaking up a bit. Did you hear that?
Oh, sorry.
You're breaking up a little bit. Go ahead. Sorry, somebody.
I'll put it in the chat.
So I absolutely think San Benito County needs to have the portion that they need to have. I am a resident of San Benito County. I particularly believe that we need to have the portion we need to have. I think my question is, how do we help San Benito County as this body get closer to meeting the threshold of to meeting that 75% threshold? And I think that goes sort of back to Luis's or Supervisor Alejo's questions as well, because I want to make sure that we're also overseeing the funds in the way that we need to.
Thank you. And I know Phyllis was first, but Enrique Arreola could probably answer that question. So I'll go to Enrique, since it was a question directly for San Benito. Enrique?
So I had more of a comment, because I'm also surprised. We'll probably be contacting Katrina. I'm just curious to see what caused that. And second, last year we were more in the higher end score, so I'm surprised. So I'd like to just find out, what happened, fix why we didn't make threshold, and fix it.
We changed a lot. So we're looking at subjective data and non-subjective data. Like we're pulling HMIS. We're looking at outcomes. We're measuring it against our Leave Me Home measures, and which is a very aggressive, plan that was put before my predecessors. And as we near closer to the end of that Leave Me Home plan expiring and us having to go into a next one, I have to respond to it. I'm going to be the one who reports out and says why we're not meeting those goals and objectives. It's going to fall on me. So I have to do the very best that we can in our office to align everything we do going forward to match that plan. So it was aggressive, and it was very, very competitive.
So thank you for that. So just for my full understanding, so if the Lead Me Home plan to reduce homelessness, as I remember, the 5-year plan was that San Benito County will build 190 new units, and let's say we only did 15 or whatever number, then that's going to reflect negatively. So the scores will be tied to that. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's pretty aggressive. Like Monterey, we said we're going to reduce homelessness by 50% in 5 years. We saw that it was able. We were getting close to it during 2020 when we were getting all the COVID funds. It was super obtainable. But then when all those funding went away, those projects stopped. People returned back into homelessness. Lots of factors going into there. So yes.
Okay. And one last quick note. Sorry about that, Phyllis. So our point in time count actually went up. So it did not reduce homelessness. So that would show negatively, correct?
Across the board. Only. Let me go back to the slide. Of the 23, only 4 projects met threshold. So that says a lot about our community and our plan, our Leave Me Home plan, and the outcomes, our current outcomes. So it's not one project. It's system wide, and we're looking at that and how we're going to make these changes in our next Leave Me Home plan, and how more strategic we have to be with our funding, and the type of support all of us need to get our projects aligned with state and federal priorities and objectives.
Thank you. Anything? Okay, then we got Phyllis.
Hi, and I just took myself off mute because I can never find my unmute, and I didn't mean to be rushing you, Enrique. So let me tell everybody, I was on that committee that went through those. It was a lot. It took us a really long time to even read through them, let alone rate them. And being on the committee, I want to also share that I'm really concerned about the money that wasn't distributed. I think there are ways that it could be distributed to be helpful in the community. That said, I think there are also things that maybe didn't align 100% between what applicants were asked to answer, what we were asked to review, and how we reviewed it. And also that, how that 75% threshold was calculated. As an example, we had to consider, I'm sorry. I think there's a lot of programs that if somebody comes in, seemingly violent or seemingly under the influence and unable to control themselves, they're not admitted in. But not every program put that. So do we count that against the program programs that reported that is a threshold to entry? Or do we not consider that? Do we assume that all of the programs are doing that? So, and there were several things like this that I think really contributed to how we had to rate the programs on our end. So I just wanted to share that.
So I did honestly, the question I put in the chat made it, but I was wondering if we could get a more detailed analysis of where the funds for CHSP are going to be allocated towards for the expansion funds being used, if that's going to be able to fund the lead at all. I do have some concerns. I feel like there's some organizations that are going to receive this funding that, I've experienced, both directly and through community feedback, that their approach isn't reflective of Housing First principles, and I think if we're serious about system transformation and prioritizing dignity, equity, and low barrier access, with more funding, I mean, we now reward them with more funding, So I think if we could review like some of the practices and maybe require a corrective action plan before releasing any funds, because that aligns with the Housing First and Center's compassionate service delivery.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late, and so I need just a little bit of recap on what you guys what are you talking about in versus the numbers that I'm seeing, because I have my concern is you have to make something affordable for the unhoused. And being said that, you have all these programs that are allocating funds that are giving to, to these to help the individual. But how long are they going to be able to keep a roof over their heads if they don't have enough money? Second, I'm looking at all these different places being built as we speak. Example, Seagrove Apartments. Now that it's brand new. 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. I literally went over there yesterday, and when you're on Section 8 or when you're on those programs, they cannot say that they don't accept Section 8. But what they have done was raise the rent higher so that people that are on these programs cannot afford to get in it. Their 1 bedrooms are over $2,000. Their 2 bedrooms are $3,000 plus. Their 3 bedrooms are $4,600. And so my concern is make it affordable, and then possibly tapping in with some of these complexes, managers, and come to an agreement to where, and even with the Section 8 people, having that more money, funded for the unhoused, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that.
Affordable. You cannot house somebody if it's not affordable. Their main concern is, okay, you got me in this place, so how am I going to afford it if I've been homeless for such a long time? I don't have a job. What are my means? Is someone going to help me? Advocate for me to follow through with the other needs that I need help with? I yield.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a first for approval. Do we have a second? I'll second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
I'm opposed. I'm opposed.
Okay, we have 1 opposed, Tim Heaven. Thank you. So that would take us to our next item, which is the HHAP 6 update.
Supervisor. So for HAP 6, we did just a very brief overview the last Leadership Council, and we've been able to get a glimpse at the actual application and really all that it entails. So just as a quick recap, for this next round of HHAP, we are getting $3.7 million just for the COC. Our applications will be due to the state on August 29th. And we do have requirements of 50% of our base allocation being expended by June 30, 2027. 75% of that allocation must be obligated by June 30th, 2027, and then full expenditure by June 30th, 2029. In going through the application requirements, I will be totally honest and blunt. It's a lot, and it's going to be a very big lift for the coalition and for the county partners. It's requesting a lot of information that is not typically something that you find within the homelessness response system. And there have been letters and pleas to HCD regarding Ms. Nofa, so in addition to what was originally coordinated action plan last year, there are new sort of elements that we're going to need to include. So what was in there last year were community input sessions. We did host one of our community input sessions at the Lead Me Home Summit. We are required to host 3, so we will be planning an additional 2 more at least. probably one in San Benito County, one in Monterey County to get more targeted feedback. And then we will need to update our regionally coordinated action plan, which is not the biggest of the lifts, and that's typically where we kind of identify who's responsible for what in things like encampments and service delivery and coordination. A new component, which is going to be a very large lift, not only for the coalition and the county, but most likely our partners as well, is the encampment identification. So this round, we are required throughout the entire region, which covers both of our counties, to identify encampments. They have not defined what an encampment is, but we are required to identify all of the encampments within our region, give a specific plan with specific dates on how we plan to resolve that encampment, whether or not that encampment has or will go for ERF funding, the number of people in them, and the types of interventions that will be used to help get these folks and this encampment cleared. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of work. So we are working with Monterey County, with San Benito County, and the city of Salinas, who does have an encampment sort of platform that they already use, and we will be ramping all of that up very soon. We are waiting for a little bit more guidance from HCD on this encampment identification and really what's required, especially the definition of an encampment. Is it 2 people? Is it more than 10? Those types of things. So that will be a very big lift for the coalition. A big lift for our county partners is going to be housing element compliance, your pro-housing designation, your surplus land identification, and your housing law violations. So in each of these different kind of components, you will be required to say whether you are in compliance, whether you have violated, if you have a pro-housing designation, etc. And if you don't have any of those things, you need to come up with a very specific plan with specific dates to become compliant. Housing element compliance is a requirement for both counties to receive their second disbursement. It does not is not a requirement of the COC, but it is a requirement for both of those counties. If you are not housing element compliant at all, you will not receive that funding. Again, something else we are bringing up with HCD, these are critical funds, and it is much harder to get housing element compliance than others may believe. So it takes a lot of work, and it's not necessarily a fault of the county if they do not reach that compliance. So that will be a big lift for our counties. What was the same as last year is the System Performance Measure Improvement Plan. So for each of the type of activities we choose to fund, and for all activities we have funded with previous rounds of HHAP, we must just talk about how we will be improving system performance measures set out by the state of California. That's something that we can update, thankfully. And then the same goes for our HAP 6 funding plan. It's really just more of an update of what we as the community will decide to fund. The last and another great lift, especially for our county partners, is documenting the sustainability of our region's interim housing portfolio and our permanent housing portfolio. And within that requirement is you need to list the number of beds that you have that are interim, that are existing permanent housing, that are at risk of losing their affordability status permanent housing, and any future permanent housing. And then when you document this, you are also required to list the specific funding streams and the amount from each funding stream that will go to support the capital and the operating costs for every single one of those projects, units, beds. And then if you do not meet the sustainability requirement, you will, for interim housing, you will not be able to go for new interim housing or street outreach. So if you have a gap in any of your funding for any of these types of programs, we will not be able to apply for new interim housing projects for street outreach projects. Again, a very big lift because it is requiring interim housing beds, the permanent housing beds, and things that are at risk of expiring affordability. So, for example, if there is a project that was only for a certain, like 30% AMI, but that's going to be expiring because the deed expired after 55 years. You have to include that in your application and how you plan to fund that moving forward. So HAP 6, in short, is going to be a very, very, very a very large administrative burden for the counties and for the COC and for, I'm sure, our city partners. It will require all of us to come together. We do need information from cities to be able to inform the plan, and especially the sustainability of the housing portfolio and our encampment identification. So be on the lookout for emails from myself, Katrina, from Roxanne, from DSS. We will all be working together to try and bring everyone together to get all the information we need for this NOFA.
Nicole, when you were saying compliance, the client has to be in compliance?
No, this is just specifically pertaining to the county.
Nicole,
To the county, okay.
Going forward, we're not going to do back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Alejo?
Yes, thank you very much, everybody. I just wanted to speak to the additional strings attached to the funding. I think that this is going to be more common with any future funding coming from Sacramento. I think the legislature, the governor, the housing community development are going to be more engaged in putting additional requirements to the funding that we receive. Two things. One, the governor may revise, it comes out May 8th or 9th, but his January proposal had no money for future HAP. So that would be HAP 7 in this coming fiscal year's budget. We're hoping that the legislature will put additional funding when the May revise is revealed. Secondly, though, there is some risk for continuum of care like ours. There's some legislators that want to take funding away from the COCs and divert it elsewhere to the cities or to the counties. We're paying attention to that because our COC, we don't have an association like the League of Cities or the Counties Association to be able to be a voice and defend our collaboration. All the good work that we've done over the years through the COC is unique, that is not happening at the city councils or at the board of supervisors. We're a unique body. We collaborate with the cities and the county, of course, the counties. But I just wanted to let people know that there's that potential risk out there this coming budget vote in June. But if I hear anything, I'll make sure to keep our board apprised. The only other new thing on funding is CSAC is going to announce a legislation probably tomorrow, creating a pilot project for some additional homelessness funding. Monterey County would be one of those that would be included in that pilot. So hopefully that works out legislatively, and that might give us some additional resources to carry out this work. That's all I want to say, Colin. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Enrique. Ariella?
Thank you very much. Again, just to clarify, whenever we submit proposals to the state, there are some, especially from HCD, that does require the housing element to be adopted. So the last year and a half or so, we haven't been able to submit some proposals because of that. So if housing element compliance is a requirement for HHAP 6, I'm not even sure if we're compliant now. San Benito, I know they were working on it. They were very close. They've gone through public meetings and renderings of all corrections and updates. So I think we probably are either there or close to there. But my question is that if a jurisdiction does not have their housing element adopted, then that means they can't even submit an application, correct?
Sorry, Supervisor. But
Go ahead,
you can still submit, but you cannot receive your second half of your disbursement from HAP 6 if you are not housing element compliant for a county.
Okay, so you would have, if someone would submit it, be awarded, they would only be reimbursed for half of it, and the second half once it's adopted. Is that?
Yes, yeah. There's a certain time frame that counties will have to have their adoption by in order to get that second disbursement. and I can send that to you after, Enrique, so you guys are just
Okay.
all on the same page.
Thank you.
Colin, on the question of Monterey County doesn't have a certified housing element, but like San Benito, we're close. We're almost to the end.
Very close.
So we're hoping that that's not an issue for us down the road.
And I was going to say the same thing. My understanding, talking to our planning director, is that we're on the verge of getting compliant. It's just the back and forth with the state, but there's an expectation that this is the last sort of iteration of the communication with the state. So, Tim, Evan.
Hey, so just to let everyone know, I've been working with the Housing California Coalition and having frequent meetings with state officials regarding HAP 7 and Governor Newsom. He's really, has all his talk is around accountability, and I'm advocating towards less administrative burden, because that's not going to be real accountability. That's just adding more workload and unnecessary burden. And so, we're just talking about maybe incentivizing areas, COCs, instead of penalizing them, because in the end it's going to affect the people. So I just want to let everyone know that I have been advocating and frequently meeting with these state officials and advocating for some better solutions.
Thank you for that. Anything further? We have Wes White.
Yes, I was curious about the encampment identification and policy. Is that to be aligned with what Monterey County already has for the encampment resolution policy and the CHSP's encampment resolution set?
The requirement for encampment policies is actually that it is in alignment and in compliance with the CAO-HSI encampment policy, which I believe for the most part our plans that we have already created are within that, do fall within that compliance. There are more questions about that encampment policy that we are asking HCD, and we are still waiting a response for.
Thank you very much, Tim. And if we could be brief, because we've got to stay on track time-wise here.
Right. Yeah, real quick. I just reminded. So, as part of this new policy they created, also we do have to identify safe sleeping locations for people that it could be at. Correct?
That's one of our questions to HCD, because in the guidance it says they suggest it. So we are just hoping for a more clear answer from HCD about what that means. Is that still a suggestion, or is it a requirement?
So most of you guys know that we've been in an overhaul of our coordinated entry policies and started working on the prioritization of our coordinated entry plan and our assessment tool. So I'm going to briefly go over this just so that we can get to the point. We've been walking through our assessment tool and meeting with community members and really trying to work through how we're going to rebuild our assessment tools, our prioritization tool, from the BI-SIDAT to something that is more tailored to our community. So what we sent out out to you all is the updated prioritization scoring matrix and questionnaire. Okay, so this is what we sent out to you is our policies and procedures, and there's a few changes here. Really looking at, when I scroll down, some language here on how we're moving from matching by type of program to dynamic prioritization. And dynamic prioritization is really talking about when housing resources became available. With the program opening, we're submitting those with the highest vulnerability that should be going into program at that time. So just a little feedback on how things were going prior. This is not something new that has been going on in our community. What would happen if we waited for each client to be matched up exactly how the VI SPDAT is. People will be waiting for housing for an enormous amount of time, and because our housing opportunities are so small, we have to make sure we're moving people forward, and we're limiting the amount of time they are staying outdoors. So that was one of the changes that was being made. And then looking at the questions that we're asking. So some of the questions that we end up asking are already in our HMI assessment intake form. So moving some of those questions out of the vulnerability. So it's rewording some of the questions, and it's limiting the amount of times you're asking these questions. So I sent this to you guys all. I'm sorry that some of you guys did not get them right away. I hope that you were able to read them, and kind of just want to see if anybody has any questions about the changes that were made in this document prior to today. Yeah, because also changing language throughout our policy. So like, you're not going to see vulnerability index because we're not using the VI SPDAT any longer. You're going to see assessment score going on ahead. We stay true to the priorities that our community has established. Adding, I think it was, medically frail was already a priority. So we didn't make any changes to the priority population. So it's still the medically frail, families, youth, veterans, and was there one more? Oh, and unhoused. Unhoused is just that.
Yeah, I think it's families, veterans, those folks fleeing DV, medically frail, and unsheltered.
Great. And just for clarification, you were looking for approval on the language?
Yes,
Great.
on the changes that we made to this policy, which is language and the tool.
Well, the tool itself will be, I think we will bring it to you all during the June meeting. We don't have the finalized sort of revision list or revision document. This is mostly for the revisions made to this document, which is the PNPs.
Great, thank you. And we'll go to public comment first, and then come back to the board. So public comment, we have Michelle with your hand raised.
I don't know if this makes a difference, but what about, you say prioritizing, what about mental health, the people out there that have mental health issues and or substance abuse issues? Where do they fit in that?
In reading the dynamic prioritization, I guess the question that I had was more about how, so the way I'm reading this, like for interim, for example, we put out our request, we have a opening at Sandy Shores. Our criteria is we need serious mental illness. And so the coalition will go through their assessment and then provide us I guess my question is, how is that different from what's currently happening? Because that feels like what we're currently doing.
Yeah, so it shouldn't change your process much, if at all, because it's already kind of what we have been doing. We're just going to codify it now into policy. So it shouldn't change the referrals that you all receive at interim or anything like that.
So then I guess one of the issues that we do have is that sometimes we'll get referrals that actually don't meet that criteria. Are there different processes in place to help support that and to get more quicker so that we're able to fill those beds quick? I think that's our main worry.
Yeah, and we're super excited to say we are working with behavioral health to be able to build a by name list specifically for people with SMI and behavioral health needs, so that we can get you all those referrals and have already verified that those folks are within your systems as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing no other hands raised, I would just entertain a motion for approval of the language.
I'll move to approve.
You have a first, you have a second?
I'll second. White.
First and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. That would take us to the CARS 60-day hold Pajaro prioritization.
So there's construction taking place in the Pajaro levee, and this request came in from the Monterey County's Administrative Office, Homeless Strategies and Initiatives Division, to authorize CHSP's office to prioritize those being displaced off the Pajaro levee in coordinated entry from for a term that would end in July 2025, and would like to direct all HAP and state ESG funded shelters to prioritize these displaced occupants for that same term. Also keeping in mind that Pajaro residents will likely not want to come to Monterey or San Benito County. But we want, falling in line with the county's encampment resolution plans, we are doing our best to support those in need. So I see that Sarah is on the line. This also came from Sarah's office. If you have any input, that would be great.
Oh, on the 60-day hold. I was not involved in that. I think what you said is great. I wasn't involved in our office in that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just thought Roxanne may have briefed you since she's your alternate. You're her alternate. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. She did say that we were going to have the cleanup sometime towards the end of June or July. She mentioned that.
So what this means is, like, we're not holding forever. What we would do is there would be a priority to those folks being displaced from Pajaro. We would offer services if something comes up in our community, in any of our projects. And if they do not accept it, then we move on to those that continue to be on our coordinated entry master list. So we saw what we can do for 545 Work Street when we were able to direct those folks into services and just offering the same level of support. But I would be asking for approval.
A couple questions on this, Katrina. Okay, so, that Pajaro levee, right? There's like 90% of the people are on the Santa Cruz County side, right? There's very little on Monterey County side, from what I.
That's not true. I think that a lot of them moved to the Monterey County side recently. There was a cleanup on the Santa Cruz County side.
That's accurate.
2 months ago.
Okay, so I guess my question was also, like, who's gonna be responsible for, like, getting these? Are these clients that are already in HMIS that are gonna be prioritized for these 60 days, or is there, who's gonna get them entered in or assessed?
So our outreach teams that work in Monterey County. And I don't know if these people are already in HMIS. The 545 Work Street people were not. They were permanently housed. So.
Hi, it's Roxanne Wilson. Sorry, I am in a spotty area with very little reception, but I'm here to answer any questions that anybody may have because I am the one making the request.
What we're hearing is a couple questions that I think has been answered. Majority of these folks are on the Santa Cruz side. Are we prioritizing? Like, who's going to be doing getting these folks into HMIS? Are these folks in HMIS already? Those were the 3 questions that popped up.
The majority of the people are on the Monterey County side. At one time, they were on the Santa Cruz County side, which is no longer true.
Any other questions for Roxanne? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the policy. Sarah first.
I'll motion to approve the policy.
I gotta get the name clarifications. Who was the first?
Alejo moves.
Alejo in the second?
White.
I think
White. Okay, great. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you very much for that. That would take us to the governance section, which is monitoring and evaluation committee update. This is an information.
One action item within the update. So if I could, we are seating Rosa Torres from Interim Inc. onto the committee for a voting, to have a voting seat. So if I could please get a motion to approve Rosa Torres.
I'll move to approve.
Real quick, Casey,
sorry.
before we do that, is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll go back to if there's a motion, and we had heard a motion from Casey Powers at first. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Laura.
Laura, thank you very much. First and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, motion passes. So go forward again. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Supervisor. As our monitoring program update, we are currently working together with all of the funders within the county. So that's the counties and the COC, the City of Salinas as one of the major funders. And what we've been doing is actually we've been able to look at each other's contracts and identify where language has been inconsistent. And we are trying to now align that contract language so that anything that comes out from our offices will all be aligned in what they are requesting, what they are asking for. And that includes new contract exhibits that clearly define the expectations around HMIS, around participation in coordinated entry or CARS, and for our state's California Housing First Law. Those are some of the things we have been doing. We've also proposed a regional grievance policy, which we'll get to next. And then we have, with our contractors, been able to host focus groups with service providers and people with lived experience to get an understanding of how our system is doing, what are some improvements, where are the gaps. And that is mostly within like the service provision. So what we will be doing is we're developing a Housing First toolkit and a training schedule based off of the feedback that we did receive from these focus groups. We will also be distributing an analysis, kind of like a report of that survey, and then a system-wide performance report will be coming out a little bit later, which will include information from the surveys that we've collected from people with lived experience, as well as from those focus groups, and then using our data within HMIS to be able to tell the story of what's going on in our community. Additionally, we are in development of a contract monitoring policies and procedures. This is mostly geared towards state funding, but it does have the ability to be expanded out to the COC and ESG funding. And that is hopefully coming in this summer. And those are my updates for the Monitoring and Evaluations Committee. Up next, we are looking for adoption of the COC Regional Grievance Policy, and this is to establish a standardized procedure for individuals who are participating in homeless programs within Monterey and San Benito counties. What this document does help with is identifying standard definitions. So what is the difference between a complaint and a grievance? What is the difference between a grievance and feedback and a complaint and feedback, things like that. It also has requirements for what we are expecting within grievance policies from providers when we are contracting with you. So it's a little bit more specific for your providers to be able to understand exactly what it is we are looking for. In addition, we are creating a new QR code survey and flyer that will be required to be put up in all funded programs, and that is just a QR code that will lead to our grievance form. And then it does outline a process for these grievances and what is expected of providers, and then what you can expect from the Monitoring and Evaluations Committee as sort of the folks who will oversee these grievances as they come in.
Yeah, there was a situation I ran into recently. I just want to make sure that, I don't know how we could implement this, but they were exiting someone from the program, and she wanted to file a grievance, but they kind of rushed her out and made her sure and told her just to email it to them later. And I just want to know if there's any way we could maybe address that, or they have to be required to let them have time to fill out their grievance at least, because they're most likely not going to ever be able to email them the grievance,
So within the policy, there is specific language citing that if someone has risen to the level of a grievance and they have filed something with within our Q code, within our QR code, within our survey, that there is a requirement for providers to not exit somebody until that has been resolved, unless they pose a very physical, dangerous type threat to the safety of your program. So there is a provision in there for that, and that is something that we would expect, as well as if you do end up having to exit that client, that there would be sort of a submission in writing of the details of why that was necessary.
So this is very timely. There has been some discussion at the state about whether to require counties to have a formalized review process to handle people who believe they may have been exited inappropriately from a program or entitled to additional benefits from some of the housing programs, and whether that should actually be a state hearing officer or that the counties will be responsible for that type of a procedure county by county. So this is a big debate that's going on. I don't think that this in any way, currently would impact this policy. However, depending on what the state decides, it may have some additional impact.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for those who may be a little concerned. The policy is the COC level, and the policy essentially makes a series of requirements on what we are asking of nonprofits to have in their own individualized grievance policies. And then there is a opportunity for grievances to get escalated to the COC. I think a lot of that has been in a response to several complaints in many different ways that they come to us. And we just wanted to create a process so all individuals who are receiving services from our network has a general idea of how they can escalate and go through the proper route of trying to address it with the organization first before escalating it out to the funders. And then the entity that would be reviewing the grievances is the Monitoring and Evaluations Committee.
Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval. Is there a first?
A motion to approve.
Who was that? Wes?
Oh.
Wes White?
Yes.
I believe. Yep. We have a first. We have a second.
I'll second. Tim.
We have Tim having seconds. First and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So that does mean we do have time for the two added items. I believe the first one was the Housing Authority update.
Right now, I think we have about approximately 4,700 vouchers out in the community. We're not issuing any new vouchers other than BASH vouchers and some PBV units that's still under contract. We will not start issuing any new vouchers possibly until sometime next year because we are projected to go into a shortfall, which means that we may not have enough money for all of the vouchers that we have for the rest of the year, because Section 8 is on the calendar year budget. But we are already working with HUD to try to get additional funding if needed. Let's see, I know everybody been hearing about the EHB vouchers, or maybe you haven't heard about their allocation. There's a rumor out that they're stopping the program and they're only going to fund it for this 1 year. That's not true. What they did is they sent out funding for this year for EHB, and they said that it should roll into next year. But the EHB funds are actually protected under the American Rescue Plan Act to have 10 years worth of obligations. So after looking at it, HUD has determined that it might not be enough money in that allocation that was protected. So they're trying to see what they need to do about that. But their people on EHB will still get their payments. They can move, do whatever, just like they normally do. They're just trying to see for the future of the program so that they can ensure that it'll be around the 10 years. But nobody's being kicked off or nothing like that. Let's see, what else?
I have a question for you.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Can you hold up just a moment, please? Go ahead and finish your update if there is anything.
Yeah, so with the vouchers, we have been getting some complaints. So I want to kind of make you guys aware of some of the complaints and the reason why. One, we've had a number of people that went to Cecil and places like that because their vouchers expired, and so they wanted us to reinstate them. We cannot reinstate their voucher if their voucher expired because they did not adhere to the program rules. We've been on this action plan since March the 6th, so we can't give out new vouchers since March the 6th. So anybody who had one prior to that, they got to still use it. So it was a number of people who got vouchers like in September last year. They got all the extensions, and they never found anywhere to stay or turned in a raft of us to approve their landlord before the expiration date. So we had to expire their voucher. So it was a number of, people came up complaining and saying, hey, now I'm going to go look, this and that. But you got to remember, they had it ever since September and never turned anything in. And we can't make no exceptions unless it was something on our end that was a problem. And so if it was something that was on our end, of course, we corrected it and gave them their voucher back. But in most of the cases, the people just never turned anything in. So that's number one. The second thing, we're doing annuals, and we have about 100 individuals who refuse to turn in their paper. It's time for their certification. It's really late. Some of them from March, February, and we have just been consistently calling them and trying to get them to turn the information in, send it online, anything so they can keep their voucher. But for whatever reason, they are refusing to do that. So we have no choice but to send out termination letters. We're going to send those letters out. If they don't respond in the timeline that's on the letter, which is actually another extension, we're going to have to terminate their voucher. So I'm sure once it gets terminated, they'll be reaching out to a lot of you saying, oh, the house going to terminate my voucher, this, that, and that. But we can't keep it without them turning in the paperwork for us to do the certification. And it's about 100 individuals. Now, why they won't turn it in, I have no idea. But without the information, we can't process it. So other than that, our voucher program is fine right now. We don't anticipate any drastic changes to it or anything like that. We're just not issuing any new vouchers. And so we're really just doing everything that we can to make sure that all of the 4,700 people that's currently on the program can sustain the voucher they have and stay in place. So that's really our mission right now.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, so anybody who's in a shelter who has been waiting to get a voucher, there are no new vouchers. So does that include people who are in transitional housing and in shelters, or is there some kind of set aside to help those people transition to permanent housing?
No, they would have been on one of our special voucher programs through the referral system, which means they would have came through on that waiting list and been housed already or processed or been ready to be housed. So if they are, in a shelter or living somewhere like that, there's nothing that we can do at this point until we can issue vouchers again. But none of them have been promised vouchers. So I want to kind of be clear on that. It's nobody that has been promised a voucher that we did not give them the voucher and give them the opportunity to get housed.
The vouchers that, each city is allocated an amount. Marina, Salinas, Monterey, Carmel, when you get these vouchers. When a person finds a place and it's in the city, but it's slightly over, I've seen at least 5 people get turned down from being able to rent a place because Section 8 won't allow to have that payment of what that landlord or apartment complex is asking.
Thank you, Supervisor. Zulika, is there a way for service providers that are representing voucher applicants to get a list maybe of those that have not responded to a voucher renewal notice so that we can follow up with them as well? They usually don't come to us until they're totally in dire straits, so I just want to try to get ahead of it.
I can ask the staff to make a list, and I don't know who all the providers are, so maybe I can send it to you, Jill, and you can just shoot it out to everybody.
Absolutely, happy to do it.
Okay, because we have a list of them, but I can get a list of the people, because I really hate for them to, lose their voucher, but if they don't turn in the paperwork, it's nothing that we can do. And some are as old as December that we still been trying to get these people to turn their paperwork in.
Well, if we can get a list of those folks, the agency that they're affiliated with, perhaps, I don't know if you have that, at your fingertips, and the date the voucher expires, then we can prioritize them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I know in September we issued like about 1,000 vouchers, right, during that lottery or whatnot. I did request, and maybe if you could bring it to the next meeting, like how many, I wanted to see how many of those 1,000 vouchers, how many of those people actually got housed, and if there was any plan to automatically renew those vouchers, given the fact that we gave out 1,000 vouchers at a time without the housing inventory available. I've had so many clients that have been looking for housing with these vouchers that haven't been able to find any place because all there's nothing out there, and it's just I just think that given the circumstances, that I think that the normal the time frame would be extended to allow those people that got the vouchers to be able to use them to be able to find housing.
Okay, so Tim, a couple of things. The event was very successful. We gave out 1,006 vouchers actually. Of the 1,006 that we gave out, I think it was like 724 people that actually got housed from the event. We did already give out additional extensions. They got the vouchers on September 16th. The voucher only supposed to last the first 60 days, but then you can give out 2 more extensions to make it 120, which we did. So it ended around January. And then at the end of January, well, in the middle of January, when the voucher expired, we gave them an additional 60 days and had all of the vouchers expire in March, trying to get them more time to find somewhere. So in essence, they got about 6 months. Let's see, October, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah, they got about 6 months, 180 days to find somewhere. We really can't go past that. That was already exceeding the normal extensions. So they, if they didn't find anything that expired, they'll have to wait till the waiting list open back up and maybe get pulled again.
Thank you very much for that update. That was an informational update. So we'll move on. We have one last item, which would be Katrina McKenzie providing information on the Leaving Home Summit.
I'll do my best to be really brief. Again, you guys, thank you all for showing up and for Supervisor Alejo helping with securing the additional sponsors we need to put on this event. Preliminarily, after trying to go through all of the sign-in sheets, we have about 280 people of the 350 that registered attend. So we had that's about 30%, right, of no-shows, which Donna called. She said, you're going to have 30% of people not show up, and I really pressed her hard to make sure we had more than enough food, and we ended up with a lot left over. So we're just learning that the summit is growing and it's in high demand. A lot of people were unable to attend because of the high registration, and then having 100 or so folks not attend was a little frustrating because those other folks could have come. So we're, meeting with the team and debriefing on everything. We really, really, really want to be able to, in years to come, to charge for this event. And it doesn't have to be something huge, but, $30 a person, and then having, the sponsorship cover, our summit speakers, our lived experience attendees, and our lived experience, speakers and presenters as well, because, we were able to raise about $45,000. Our estimated expenses so far is about $50,000. So we were over budget for sure, and the coalition will figure out how to get the rest of that funded. But I know it was a discussion in previous meetings that we did not want to charge, but I really want you guys to start thinking about that and how, I think we should. To put on these types of events takes a lot of funding and staff time, and we just want to be able to continue to put on a really stellar event. Some of the speakers we wanted to get out here couldn't come because we couldn't pay for travel costs and all those things. So that's all. That was it. Really think about it. Donna's one of the main gals on our team. So
hey, I just want to tell you, Katrina, I can help with those overages if you want. I'm working on my budget as we speak, so I can help with that. Just let me know.
Yes, thank you so much, Donna. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Lavisha was saying this will help prevent with no-shows. Yes, people will be invested in coming and want to show up. And the people that, registered, it's kind of sad to say, it's like our leadership council members, it's our CHSP board members that didn't show and took away from some people that could have definitely been there. So just wanted to put that out there. But for my first summit as the executive director, I think it went really well. And that's it. On time.
All right, just on time. You did a great job, Katrina. Appreciate it. And any public comment real quick here? Seeing none. Any questions and comments from the council? Seeing none. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. Thank you to Katrina and everybody else putting this together, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week.